We introduce Sarah Ames, Karen Loebbaka. I'm just going to call you Karen, I think. Ashley Farmer Paff, right? Cynthia Roenisch, and Heather McPhail.
Go for it. Sridharan. It's pretty good. Sridharan. Yeah.
Sridharan. I'm going to call you Heather.
Yeah.
The candidates have been invited to make opening statements of 2 minutes, and we'll start with Sarah.
Can you hear me? Hello, my name is Sarah Ames, and I'm running for the Kentfield School Board. I have 3 children, and my oldest began as a brown bear 11 years ago at Bay Stitch. He's currently a sophomore at Redwood High School. I have a daughter in 6th grade, and I have an 8th grade son who is currently studying in Spain, who will be coming back and graduating from Kent in June. We've heard a lot about experience in this campaign, so let me tell you a bit about mine. I have 11 years experience volunteering in our district, and I have been a lead room parent many times at Bay Stitch. I've also co-chaired Games Night at Kent, coordinated the Laurel Dell Tutoring Program at Kent, chaired the Site Council at Bay Stitch, and with a good friend, I created the Bay Stitch School Supply Program, which grossed almost $27,000 last year. I also have earned a BA from UC Berkeley, a multiple subject teaching credential, and I have a master's in education. 5 years ago, I also created my own tutoring business. The 3 things that I feel that set me apart as a school board candidate are that I have 6 years teaching experience in the California public schools. I've been involved in piloting a new mathematics program as a classroom teacher. And I have experience creating innovative programs for our district that have funded programs such as community outreach that our students engage in. I believe in honoring traditions at work, but also believe in innovation that leads to better results and outcomes. I have created successful programs both within the school district and privately. And with this ability to find new solutions, we'll find solutions to ensure academic excellence for all Kentfield students. Thank you.
Karen Loebbaka. First of all, thank you to the PTA and the League of Women Voters for hosting us this evening. My name is Karen Loebbaka, and I'm a proud mom of 6th grade twins here at Kent, and an active volunteer in our school community. I'm proud of my leadership in the district over the past 3 years. I'm currently serving my 2nd term as the Kentfield School PTA president. I served on the Bay Stitch Site Council from 2010 to 2012. I've been on the district strategic planning committee every year since 2010, and I'm starting my 3rd consecutive year on the Kentfield School District Finance Committee. Last year, I'm very proud to have been a co-founder of the district's Technology Strategic Planning Committee as well. Through my involvement in these and other committees, I formed collaborative and trusting relationships with all the constituents at both schools, Bay Stitch and Kent teachers, principals, staff, district administration, parents, and the current board of trustees. I believe in leading by example, and last year I partnered with our amazing army of parent volunteers to provide nearly 15,000 hours of volunteer service through PTA activities. I have the experience, relationships, and depth of knowledge in the district to become a trustee and be effective immediately. Thank you for considering me for one of your 3 votes.
I was appointed to the Kentfield School Board in April of 2009. I decided to join the board because I felt like I had something to offer. I have an economics degree from Princeton and an MBA. I've worked for Goldman Sachs and the World Bank, I had been serving on the district finance committee for 3 years, and I had a very good understanding of our district budget and the financial issues our district was facing at that time. When I joined the board, we were at the very beginning of the recession. We are now at another crossroads. The state has made significant changes to the way our schools will be funded going forward by giving much more control over budgeting decisions to local school districts. 3 of the people sitting up here are going to have a legal obligation to ensure that our district's financial resources are being spent wisely. We have a complex $14 million budget, and no other trustee or candidate for trustee has the financial background required to help the district navigate this important transition. Each year, our school district needs to approve its annual budget in mid-June before the state of California approves its budget at the end of June. What that means is that we need to track the state legislative process to anticipate how much money our schools will be getting for the year. Since joining the board, I've traveled to Sacramento at least 4 times a year, and I worked regularly with Jared Huffman's office when he was our state assemblyman, and even helped his staff with the proposed trailer bill language when our schools were being unfairly hit by a particular state cut. I'm proud to say that Jared Huffman, our current U.S. Congressman, has endorsed my campaign. I'm running for re-election because I believe in community service, and I believe I have a great gift to give our schools. I hope you're able to support my candidacy.
Cynthia.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming tonight. I'm not sure I need a microphone, but right. I love this night because this is the night where you get to hear from the candidates and you get to hear what we think we have to contribute to the district. Not so secret. I'm the only one up here who no longer has children in the district. So you think to yourself, why is she running? Is she crazy? Perhaps. But having served on the board for 8 years, I know that there's a lot of work left to be done. And I hope that I'm able to continue working with the board to preserve the excellent education that's become the hallmark of the Kentfield School District. I am passionate about public education and our absolute obligation to provide the best education possible for students in our district. So passionate that in 2009, I decided to get a teaching credential. And I now teach high school English, AP English at Alameda High School, and I see the Common Core in effect every day. I see the 21st century skills that our students need, and I can come back and I can help the district plan forward. How do we prepare our students for a successful high school experience, a successful college experience, and a successful experience in the workforce? I was also trained as a lawyer and worked as a litigator for several years. Lawyers are trained to ask questions. And if anyone's come to a board meeting, you know I ask a lot of questions because that's the time where you think, okay, if we do this, how will it look 15 steps down the road? What about this? How will it affect our kids here? How will it affect our teachers, our parents? That's what lawyers do. This experience has also come in handy. Many of you may have seen in the IJ that we've had to sue the Marin County Office of Education in order to secure grant Loebbaka for our classroom space. There are 6 classrooms in there. We desperately need the space. It helps to have a lawyer on the board to help guide that process. As a board member, I am proud to say that we have accomplished many things in the last year, or the last 8 years. We continue to attract and retain the best teachers. We have successfully hired 2 new superintendents and have maintained stability and trust in the community. We've secured additional space for classrooms and basics in 2006 and 2007. We've had a successful parcel tax campaign. We've extended the Kent School Day to 7 periods to extend enrichment opportunities for children. And I hope that I'm able to continue that pattern of success.
Okay, Kevin.
Yes, thank you to the League of Women Voters for moderating this candidates forum and to community members who have taken the time to attend. My name is Heather McPhail Sridharan, and I hope to earn your vote for the Kentfield School Board. I'm a 4th-generation Marin native. Community involvement and leadership have always been at the core of who I am. So why am I running for the school board now? 3 reasons. First, I am a mother of 4 children, including 2 current basic students and 2 more that will be entering basic next year. My children will be in the district for the next 11 years. I am running to bring balanced and on-the-ground school parent perspectives to the board. Among the current candidates and trustees, I am the only one with children at basic. Second, I believe my experience is highly relevant for this board. From a young age, I have a consistent track record of bringing people together to solve challenges collaboratively and transparently. As a student at Marin Catholic, I was elected student body president. At UC Berkeley, I served as national lobby director. And finally, at Oxford University, I was elected president of all graduate students. Professionally, I have over 18 years of executive business experience. I provided technical expertise for education loans at the Inter-American Development Bank in the United Nations in Washington, D.C. I've also negotiated multi-million-dollar partnerships with some of the largest global brands, including Apple and American Express. Today, I'm an active community leader with a reputation for getting things done. The Safe Routes to School program I manage in the district is the program model in Marin and received national recognition in August. I serve on the Basic Site Council, a Transportation Authority of Marin board, and the Kentfield Greenbrier Historical Society board. I founded the Laurel Grove Next Door website. Third, I believe we are at an important crossroads. Our school enrollment has grown by over 23% in the last 5 years, which has created pressing space issues. This year, our district API score dropped by 33 points while in the midst of implementing new Common Core curriculum. We need better communication and greater transparency. Tonight, I look forward to hearing about the issues you care about and what initiatives you think will help our students thrive. Thank you.
All right, from this point on, I must ask you not to applaud. And at the end, we will applaud the candidates and applaud ourselves. When you fill out, if you need a card, if you want to write a question on a card, you can hold up your hand and people will come and supply them. For people writing questions, I want you to know that neatness counts. PTA's Legislative Advocacy Committee has submitted 5 questions that I'm going to ask first. And Karen, you will be the first one to answer. Then, if I ever lose my place, I count on the candidates to remind me what you want to say. Well, who comes next? Especially when I'm sorting the question. So the first question, Kentfield School Board has a philosophy of students first. What does this mean to you? And the candidates have up to 2 minutes to answer. You don't have to take the full 2 minutes, but you have one if you want to.
So, sorry, repeat it because you...
Kentfield School Board has a philosophy of students first. What does this mean to you?
So, the number one goal of this board is and should be all about providing the best educational opportunity for our students, providing them with resources that enable them to get the best education. We look at the child as a whole child. Not only are our academic standards very, very high and rigorous with a rich curriculum, but we also offer enrichment programs that we've been able to support despite the financial woes of the last several years. So enrichment programs that include physical activity, music, art, technology, food shop at Kent. This is important as the child is developed as a whole. We speak regularly to our parent community to hear what they have to say about their children's education. Our teachers meet and hold conferences with our parent community to make sure that they're getting feedback to best serve our children. And I believe that we do our very best in terms of providing the best educational opportunity for our children.
Okay. So, at the beginning of the meeting, of this event, Liz read off our board norms, and one of them is to think about every student at every grade level whenever we make any decisions. And I think that's something our board really holds true to. I think that where that really showed was when our district was going through the financial crisis of the past 5 years. We had to cut almost $1.5 million from our budget over the course of 5 years. That is a lot of money for a school district our size. And when we were doing that, we spent a lot of time as a district with parents, teachers, board members, administrators together, thinking about what those cuts would look like but in every instance, thinking about how can we do this and keep the interests of our students first, not touch the students. So our decision-making had to do with what can we do that stays far away from them? What can we do that makes these cuts, it's going to be in the district office, it's going to be places that our students don't feel it. It's something that's a guiding principle of everything we do. When we're making decisions, we are always considering what's the impact on our students, and they are our priority, and that's all. If that's not our guiding priority, then we should not be on schedule. Cynthia.
Students first, tacking on to what both Karen and Ashley have said, it's the education for all students. And in that way, I have a different perspective now, because my kids aren't in the district. So it's what's the best education for all students, to develop critical thinkers, to develop students who are not afraid to take risks, who are encouraged to question, to collaborate, to work with one another rather than being in competition with one another. And one of the ways that we do that so well in this district is we are able to attract and retain teachers who believe that. They believe that students are first. And every decision that they make, every decision they ask us to make, has students at the focus. And I think we have been tremendously focused on that over the last 8 years. As Ashley said, maintaining our program during budgetary times where many other districts had to cut their programs. My first year on the board, we voted to extend the Kent Day to 7 periods, which allowed us to increase the enrichments that we offered our students. It allowed us to to offer 2 years of Spanish to our students. And because we felt that was a better education for the whole student. And it gave children the opportunities to succeed in other areas, whereas maybe they weren't able to succeed as much as others in the hardcore academic areas. But we truly believe in the education of the whole student and developing those skills that will make them good contributors to society when they get out, civic-minded individuals. It's not all about grades, it's not all about test scores. And the one way that we also prepare our students is we think ahead. So though our API scores may have dropped, we've switched to the Common Core in math. Other districts have not. We're planning ahead. We're doing the best to prepare our students, and that's putting students first.
Yes, I take a little more broader approach to this too. I think that students first obviously refers to our current students in the districts, but I also think it's reflective of the families that go with those students. And from my perspective, I think when I think of students first, I think of the access and the communication to these families, so we all know what is going on with our students. So my approach is definitely much more on the inclusiveness and looking at the broader picture of the entire family, not just the students.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the people up here who've already served on our school board, because it's a huge responsibility and it's a privilege to serve in that role and to help provide the best education possible for our students. I believe every person up here believes in putting students first and believes that they are putting students first. But really what it comes down to is how do you accomplish that? I think the platitudes are easy, and I think doing it on the ground in real life is much more complicated. And what I would suggest is our school does an excellent job of meeting the needs of all different kinds of learners. Our enrichment program is second to none in Marin. I've spent the last 4 months researching other districts and seeing what they're providing as a benchmark for us. The music, the technology, the public speaking, the drama, the sports programs, a complete physical education program, not just go outside and kick the ball. They're learning gymnastics and tumbling and archery. We have an incredible program. What I would add to that is that we haven't kept in step with what some of the other districts in this area are doing in terms of mathematics. And in terms of English, I think we're struggling down the road now of implementing the new core standards, and we'll see how that goes. We began last year with math, as did Ross. And I spoke with individuals at Ross. They have done incredible things with pushing and pulling out and differentiating within their mathematics program. Every student in 8th grade at Ross this year is enrolled in either algebra or geometry. Only 20% of 8th graders at Kent are enrolled in algebra. None are enrolled in geometry this year. So we've taken a really different approach to implementing a mathematics program in this district than anybody else in Marin is taking. No other school in Marin has fewer than 2/3, 66% of their kids enrolled in algebra in 8th grade. It's a standard, because if you don't enroll in algebra in 8th grade, when you go to high school, you're already a year to 2 years behind, and you can't complete calculus, or it's very difficult for you to. Thank you.
Ashley, give an example of a collaboration in which you participated that resulted in a decision you did not fully agree with, yet you were required to support. How did you go about supporting and advocating for that decision?
Okay. This is a hard one to go first. But that having been said, okay. I'm going to discuss, so our board last spring was asked to consider, our technology program is always in flux. By definition, we are growing, technology is changing, and so our technology program is always changing with the times and what's available and what new software is available and can be used in the classrooms. So this past spring, our school board considered a route that some districts have taken, which is a bring your own device policy. Basically, so instead of the school providing all computer devices, having students actually be responsible for bringing their own devices to school. And our board did not necessarily, and people participating in the meeting did not necessarily all have the same point of view on that topic. And I think one of the things that I really like about our board is the fact that we were able to all discuss it in an incredibly civil way. We discussed the pros and cons. What could you gain from having more devices in the classroom? What would be an issue that would arise if students had different kinds of devices, and if students who were not able to bring their own devices, would they feel left out? We had a very rich debate on the topic. I was inclined to maybe try it. Some other board members were inclined to maybe not try it right now. And we ended up deciding that that is not something we're going to do right now. However, I feel very strongly that that's the position we took as a board. It's the position we're in right now. And I 100% believe that for our district right now it's the right thing. And I would never walk around the community and question what our board decided to do. It was a decision we took as a whole. We had a great debate on the topic, and I was happy with the outcome.
It's a good question given what's happening in Washington, D.C. tonight. And it points to the value of collaboration, right? And it's what we try and teach the students in our district, and it's what we try and model as a board. Probably, I definitely agree with Ashley on the technology issue, that was one where we had discussion at the board. Also, the approach that we took to try and get Grant Grover back from MCOE. As a lawyer, as a litigator, might not surprise you, I thought we should take a more aggressive approach. I know that's a surprise. But we decided as a board, we talked about it, we talked about the value of working with our partners and working with the county to try and convince them that over 2 years they should vacate the premises and give us the space that we need for our classrooms. And we agreed to that as a board. And we proceeded with that for a year and a half. And then when we were unable to make any headway with the county, we also then discussed it as a board, what would be involved in actually filing a lawsuit against the county. We were not enthusiastic about having to do that, but we agreed as a board after much discussion that that was also the right thing to do, to protect the interests of the students in the district and to secure space that is already on the Kentfield campus. So not to just treat it cavalierly and say, let's go out and float another bond, and let's have the community build another building for classrooms. We knew we had space on the campus, and we really worked over 2 years to come to a solution at different stages as to what was the right thing to do.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yes. Give an example of a collaboration in which you participated that resulted in a decision you did not fully agree with, yet you were required to support. How did you go about supporting and advocating for that decision?
Thank
Thank you. The example I know, this is a hard one, and I think all of us with any experience in terms of serving on boards, it's common. It comes up all the time, and I think that's the importance of having a board. It speaks with one voice, and the process of the collaboration, the diversity of perspectives is really important. And the example I'm going to bring up is just the Safe Routes to School program that I manage here in the district. What I'm proud about is that we've got 18 neighborhood captains that are coming from all the different parent neighborhood captains coming from all the different neighborhoods in our district. And the way we run meetings and the way we approach issues is that it's very much encourage all ideas come to the table, say good, bad, it doesn't matter, it's all out there. And I think that in terms of the collaboration is the key in terms of what we come out with. And the answers we come back with are always, even though we may not agree, it's a single voice. And I think that's the really important thing to take away from this. So I take this away. I don't have a specific example in terms of one thing, but I can definitely say the collaborative approach and the diversity of perspectives was the way we get to the answer.
Thank you. Well, I'm going to go with the obvious, and that is the math program, shockingly, because after 11 years in our district of supporting our district in every conceivable way, I think I've done every volunteer position possible over the last 11 years. I've done some volunteer positions that don't even exist anymore. So, and as a believer in education, I was a classroom teacher. I've volunteered at my kids' preschool. I've been involved in education pretty much my whole life since kindergarten. So when our school, and especially I'm involved in math and I care about math, and I feel that mathematics is the gateway to so many fields, that if we don't provide our students with a strong foundation now, it will limit their choices down the road. So when our school decided to implement the new core standards without a curriculum to teach it with. And I went to them 2 years ago and met with them in April, with the board, the principal, the math teachers. I went up through the chain of command like they ask you to. I tried to be respectful and talk to everybody along the way. When I went through all of that and they still decided to jump in last year and teach the program without a curriculum and kind of make it up as they went along, I did my best to support what was happening, both with my own children and with other people's children. I have a tutoring business, and I created a group with pizza on Friday for kids who are going to drop out of the enrichment program, the extra program they had to do outside of school, to keep those kids engaged and working on the program. Most of those kids are now in algebra this year. So, and I'm here. I've kept engaging, I've kept talking. They keep thinking I'm going to go away, and I'm still here because I think you have to stick with what you believe, and you have to keep the conversation going. And I respect everyone here, but I think you have to keep working at it and advocate for what you feel is right.
So, who's heard about the lunch program that the PTA runs? A year and a half ago, we had a group of parents, a relatively small but very vocal group of parents raise their hands and complain about our lunch program, which admittedly was a little long in the tooth, to say the least. It was a tired program that had been run for many, many years without many changes to it. And they were demanding that we switch entirely to a whole new program and bring in an outside vendor to serve our lunches. That outside vendor would come in, provide lunches that parents could order as early as the night before, and charge the students $6 to $7 per meal. 100% of those profits going to that company. It would still require parent volunteers to serve those lunches to our kids. Working with the PTA, the president at the time, and we formed a lunch committee. We met with these parents, invited many other parents to join and hear them out, and we resourced like crazy over the course of the summer to find out what we could do. Because in fact, the PTA program that brings in approximately $180,000 to our schools every single year. That's $180,000 worth of music, technology, library books, PE equipment, performing arts. Those are really, really important programs that we do not want to lose. So we worked really hard, And I mean, some of the people that worked that summer pretty much gave up their summers. A year later, we are successfully serving a lunch program to our kids that is healthy, meets SB 12 and USDA guidelines, and we continue to provide tremendous resources and revenues to our schools to support our program.
Would you bring me up the questions that have been delivered so far so that I can begin to look them over for when we start with these? Well, we still have 4 to go, but I would like to be able to get a look at them. Okay, the next one, and we start with you, Cynthia. How can the district improve communication with its stakeholders to ensure that all voices are considered when making board decisions?
How can we improve? I guess we could start by having more people come to board meetings. Because, and that's not really facetious, because that's where a lot of the communication happens, and that's where you hear a lot of the discussion from the board, and decisions aren't necessarily made each month. We might have discussion over a couple of months, and that's where you see the process forming. We have started to communicate with the community through a board letter and board minutes, right, where we have summarized what's happened at a board meeting at the end of a board meeting and send that out to the community. We also post our agenda on the website and encourage people to find out about the board on the website. But really the best vehicle is to come to board meetings. And when we also do a parent survey, which lets us know what people are concerned about in the community. And it's notable that this last parent survey really gave a thumbs up to how the board was working, and that people were happy with what was happening in the district. So really the encouragement is to step outside, just stepping outside the classrooms, right, and taking more of a district presence, to come to the Kent campus, to come to the board meetings, to reach out to board members, and ask questions. But we've tried to step our communications. We always invite people to board meetings. We've had study sessions. We actually had a study session on the API scores. We had one parent who attended. So we try and reach out to the community on issues that we think matter to the community. And sometimes the absence, I think, tells the board that things are fine. So more people at board meetings.
This is definitely an area I feel very strongly about. If you asked me 8 months ago, when a group of friends approached me about running for this board, who's on the board? What does the board do? When do they meet? I would not have been able to answer one of those questions. Not one. And, I would have said, well, the board, isn't that KIC? I see lots of information about KIC. I had no idea. And I really think this is a fundamental issue in this district. I think we really need to make sure that all people, all school families, but also outside school families, all people who don't have kids in the district anymore, know what's going on. I guess there used to be newsletters that would go out, paper newsletters, to the entire Kentfield and Greenbrae community with what was going on the board. I do think it's a big issue that no one attends board meetings, but I would argue that no one knows about the board meetings. To have something posted in an office, a piece of paper, isn't enough. We need to do more. It needs to be not deep on the website. It needs to be front and center. And really making it, the outreach is so key here. And it doesn't have to be through email. It can be through active involvement in groups that already exist on campus. And I'm talking about, thinking about things about not just with KIC and PTA either. There's a huge community of parents who really feel disenfranchised, who don't know where to go to find these answers, and truly do care about things like the drop in API scores or the space issues. So this is something I do feel very strongly about, and I think this can be opened up in so many different ways, and I have lots of ideas of how to do that.
Thank you. Communication is vital to a school district, and having parents' input is key to that. Expecting parents to go to board meetings where the daily business of a board is conducted, I don't think is realistic. We're all busy, and I think that the information needs to be packaged and presented to parents in a way that's accessible and easy to digest. In terms of things are fine because nobody's at the board meeting, I wouldn't agree with that assessment. Having contacted one of the board members when the whole math issue came up, my husband and I requested a meeting to discuss what was being done, and she refused to meet with us. And when I asked what are other districts doing, why are they handling this implementation differently, she said she didn't know. That is not anything I will ever say. I will look at what other districts are doing. I will look at what nationwide the standards are for implementing the new core standards, and I will use the best of what's out there for our district. I also meet with any parent who has a question about what the board is doing. And I will hear you out and listen to your perspective and give you as many resources as I can to explain what we're doing. So things are fine. I don't know, I was at a meeting in the library here last year with 150 very upset parents whose kids were trying to complete a whole extra math program outside of school with no instruction and no support. So I think that things are fine perspective, maybe what the board believes, but I think there's a whole group of people in our district who don't feel that way.
I'm not sure I agree with the suggestion that our communication is broken. Could it be better? Absolutely. And I certainly hear, I was at the meeting that Sarah was referring to about the math last year with many upset parents. I will say that they've turned it around, and a year later, the math department has been amazingly communicative with the parent community. They've held meetings, they've got everything up on the website with links, the teachers are getting the information out. So I think last year was definitely a learning opportunity for the math department, using that as a specific example, and they certainly turned it around. I'm not sure why people don't know about the board meetings. It's on the district calendar, and anyone who downloads the district calendar with regard to a principal chat or photo day or a field trip would have that same information. So I'm not sure why people are not getting to the board meetings. Cynthia referred to a board meeting last week about the API scores. There was actually 2 parents at the meeting, I being one of them. And it doesn't count that I'm a candidate. I've been to most of the board meetings. Well, okay, but I've been to most of the board meetings over the last 2 years. I think they're interesting and a wealth of information. One of my favorite parts is at these board meetings, they have educational showcases. So to learn about the Spanish department, or learn what's happening in math, or learn about the Common Core Standards application and implementation of English language arts. These are the sorts of pieces of information that you can get by attending the board meetings. We need to do a better job. I agree that the board could probably do a better job in getting more information out more easily. But we're not going to start filling up kids' backpacks either with pieces of paper. We're going to have to figure out another way.
So firstly, the board takes communications very seriously. So when I joined the board in the spring of 2009, that was the first year that the board actually issued a communication survey that went out to all the parents in the school district. And if any of you took the survey, it was a lengthy survey. It went on and it covered all kinds of relationships. It talked about parent-teacher relationships, teacher-parent relationships, child-teacher relationships, administration, parent relationships. It was very detailed. And we've gone on and reissued that survey, or variations with some questions changed, every other year. So the last survey we issued was this past spring in 2013. And what's interesting is I would disagree to the allegation that people feel disenfranchised, because that is not actually what the results of the survey said at all. In fact, what the survey results said was the parents were getting the information they needed. They were very happy with the way the district was communicating with them. Of those, and we specifically asked about the board, and yes, I would say just over half of, I looked at this today, just over half of the parents said they had no reason to contact the board. Guess what? If you are a parent of a child in a school district, you probably have a reason to contact your child's teacher. You probably even may have a site issue at Basic or Kent. It's unlikely that you have a reason to contact the board. of the half of the parents who said that they would have interest in contacting the board, the preponderance were happy with their options and felt like they were able to do that. So I would disagree with the disenfranchised comment. It's something the board takes very seriously. Can we always do it better? Of course. It's something we're always thinking about, always focused on. We would be crazy not to. And as like Cynthia mentioned, the board highlights from each meeting are on our website. You're welcome to go see them. It's on the home page of our district website. It's on the list. As soon as they're posted, it's the first thing listed. You go read the highlights of the board meeting, and I welcome you to it.
All right. Question 4, and you start with Heather. Given the changes in spending discretion with the implementation of the local control funding formula, how would you prioritize the increased spending flexibility?
That's a good question. And this is something that I've been following really closely. Just as a point of reference, this local control funding formula, which, like I said, I've been in a rapid learning phase over the last 8 months preparing for this. Just a point of context, this was released with Governor Brown's 2013-2014 budget, and it's a major overhaul of the way that the state is going to be distributing finances to schools. The most important takeaway, I think, from a district like ours is that we're going to have a lot more flexibility in how we use this money. That's why it's called local control. So I think from my perspective, in terms of prioritization, I would first go back and look at the strategic plan that's in place, and I would relook at all those priorities, because this is going to be an exciting time for us in terms of being able to actually use some of this funding after going through such a long phases of cutting back and cutting back. And I would first look at this strategic plan and really make sure, are all the stakeholders represented? Do we need to revisit some of those priorities and make sure to go back to the stakeholders meeting students, teachers, parents, community members. And I would definitely look at that, the list of people who are on as I've looked over that strategic plan. I want to see that strategic plan committee have a much broader base. Right now, it does seem very heavily focused on PTA, KIC, executive leadership. I think that we need to just get a more broader, and again, larger community, not just our school community parents, but also the larger community, and go from there.
So it's Sarah?
Yes, thank you. I agree with a lot of what Heather said. The local control funding is, it not only is it a better way to fund schools, it gives us more flexibility. We're not going to receive categorical funding as we have in the past. We'll receive a funding with more flexibility to spend it on the priorities we choose. We also will have a greater responsibility at the end of the budget year to show how to use the money and to prove that we fulfill the criteria that the state has set forward. So it's a wonderful thing for us, and it's an increased responsibility. But we have Barbara Johnson in our business office. She's phenomenal. And with staff and Barbara, I think our district can work to both manage the incoming funds and the new ways we need to report on that. With the new funding method, we will be receiving additional revenues. We're expected to have increased revenues of conservatively 2% over the next 4 years due to the economic growth in California. And I would really like to see those funds going towards technology and using technology to help with the core curriculum implementation process. I love the new focus on critical thinking in our English program. And I would love to see kids have the ability to touch type. Since we have this incredible technology program, all of our kids know how to touch type. Believe it or not, a lot of middle schools do not have that program. So I would love to see technology put in place, more carts with laptops, so that students have the ability to touch type and compose on a computer. I did my master's literature review on the use of computers in writing, and it has a very positive effect, assuming that students know how to touch type. So I would like to use technology and invest in technology to support our English implementation program, and also to provide online programs for our mathematics students. For kids who are at either ends of the mathematics spectrum, there is incredible software available now online that individualizes instruction and helps these kids to make rapid growth in a short period of time.
So the local control funding formula is a ray of sunshine after a lot of rain and snow over the last several years. It does indeed bring us more stability as well as more funds, and that is really exciting. The flexibility is wonderful too, as Heather and Sarah both pointed out. It gives us the ability to better direct our funds to where they are needed. With the local control funding formula comes with it the local control accountability plan, and that lays out specific areas that the state requires us to say, okay, these are your goals as it relates to curriculum, facilities, etc., and how are you going to achieve those through the budget. So the local control accountability plan is actually pretty much aligned with our current strategic plan that has been in place for the last 5 years, 4 years, 5 years, which is reviewed on an annual basis by a large group of people, representing parents in the community, teachers, staff, yes PTA and yes KIC, but a broad range of people participating on this committee, and it does turn over. We get new, fresh participation each year from our parent community. Where I completely agree with Sarah as it relates to funding more technology to support the implementation of the Common Core standards and the curriculum. Most importantly, I'd like to see technology given to our teachers to enable them to reach every student at their level so that they can learn at their pace, at their level, on a continuum. This requires a lot of professional development too. So with technology, hand in hand goes some funds that are definitely going to need to be dedicated to our teachers for professional development.
I agree with a lot of what's been said. It's very exciting to actually, having spent 4.5 years on a board that's had to cut a lot, it's very exciting to actually be able to look at a budget where you actually add something. So I'm looking forward to even just that in and of itself. But something that I think we learned from the cuts is that I don't think these decisions, I think almost what I would see and what I would do is almost irrelevant, because this is the kind of decision that could never be made by the board in a vacuum, and it would be completely irresponsible for the board to do that. Honestly, when our district made budget cuts, it was with a huge community of people in the room talking about what mattered to our community, what we wanted to preserve, what we were willing to, where we were willing to make compromises, and it was done with the buy-in from teachers, parents, aides, administrators. It was done with that whole group getting on the same page and saying, yeah, this is what works for our district. And I think one of the reasons that our district actually did so well coming out of the recession was because there was that sense of community. We all came together. Well, I would hope going forward, as we look towards developing our first local control and accountability plan, that we have the same process going the other way, that we actually get a huge group of stakeholders together and look at what are the priorities for our community, what do we care about, where should we be spending money, is it technology, I'm not going to decide, I don't want to decide, I would like our community to decide, and we look forward to that process.
Okay. I expected our finance person to be the wet blanket, but I guess I won't. We are facing local control funding, right, which gives us the flexibility, but please remember that means there's no funding for class size reduction, okay? So some things that we built into our system and our identity as Kentfield students, we would have to choose to continue putting funding towards small class sizes. So a lot of the things that we've become accustomed to used to be funded by the state. So now we get this fund in one lump sum. And really a lot of the discretion will be in that we're not forced to buy textbooks every 7th year for each subject. We have discretion as to the materials that we get to buy. But a lot of the money that we get through this funding formula, until we see the substantial bump 3, 4, 5 years down the road, is already spoken for in what our Kentfield education is. Small class sizes K-3, small class sizes at Kent for the language arts and the social science curriculum. And we probably want to maintain that. So the amount of money that is available to be spent because we're out of the recession is not that large. And so I just want to tamp down expectations, right? But I agree with getting the community involved in determining what is important. I also believe in going to the teachers and to our superintendent and to our principals who are instructional leaders and saying, we have this. How can it help you deliver the program to the students? So I think that Kentfield has worked very well as a team. I'm proud of that and the 8 years on the board that we have involved the community and that we feel that we're in this together. And I would expect that we would continue going down that road together.
This is the fifth and final question from the Legislative Advocacy Committee, and Sarah will start review. Okay. The Kentfield School District's the Kentfield School District's vision statement is that the district is a, quote, dynamic learning community that prepares individuals for a lifetime of intellectual exploration, personal growth, and social responsibility, end quote. Comment on what a dynamic learning community means to you, particularly in light of the growing student population and the increasingly diverse learning styles and challenges of the student body. And if anyone needs me to read that again,
how long?
I'll read it again if anyone needs it.
I got the gist. Wow. I actually love that question because I'm all about a learning community, and I really believe it's not about grades or test scores. It's about kids enjoying what they're doing and having enthusiasm for it and being supported in continuing to push through to higher levels. It's not always easy. Sometimes when you learn the most, you're pushing past where you thought you could go. And I think it's really important that you have a culture in your school that supports taking risks and trying to do something new. I also think a really crucial piece of that is having a community service program. If we don't get outside ourselves, I don't think our students will be able to have the perspective and have the motivation to go out there and be the best that they can be. I deeply believe in community service, and that's why I started the Basic School Supply Program close to 9 years ago with a good friend. And we fought at that time to have the volume discounts that we negotiated very hard with the supplier of product go to funding the community outreach that our schools take part in. And that's what it's done. We've produced $2,000 to $3,000 a year that has paid for materials for Kent students to go over to Laurelville, which is a mile away, and 90% of the students there get free lunches. And they take flashcards, math games, art materials, science projects, and they do these projects with the kids over there. So I really believe that a dynamic learning environment has to have all the enrichment programs that we have and honor the different kinds of learners, has to allow math kids to be mathy, and needs to have at its core a community program that values helping others.
So let me give you a fresh example. My daughter came home today from 6th grade and she said, Mama, listen to what we did today in science. They are studying rocks and they have to draw a cartoon and they have to write a story. And so she's named her main character Neil Armstrong, who is an astronaut who's going to space, and something happens in space and they have to draw this out and they have to tell a story. So they're public speaking, they're drawing art, they're learning science, and they're collaborating with 2 or 3 other people in their group. Talk about project-based learning. Pretty compelling. We have a really great learning environment here at Kent and at Basic. In addition to the amazing teachers that we have that provide this deep, rich content and tools with which to reach every single student at every level, we also have our enrichment program, which we've already talked about tonight. Being able to allow our kids to get out of just the academia and get into an art class or singing in a chorus or playing an instrument or running around and learning a new sport. That is pretty darn cool and pretty darn dynamic. Last spring, a large group of us, maybe 8 of us, got together to re-examine what we wanted to have our 8th grade graduates look like in terms of who they are. We came up with 3 groups. We want them to be motivated learners. make sure they're curious, asking questions, loving to learn. We want them to be compelling communicators. We want them to be good storytellers, to be able to engage and listen and collaborate with people so that there's great content going on in conversation and presentation. And we want them to be compassionate contributors. Kids that are aware that we are one small speck in this big, huge world, to have empathy, to understand that we live in a very special community. Thank you.
For me, one of the, sort of just taking that first phrase, dynamic learning environment, for me, I think one of the keys is that I think the Kentfield schools are all about learning and not necessarily about achievement. I think there are school environments that are about achievement. They're about trying to reach goals. Did our kids reach this benchmark today? Did our kids get that? That are all about solving problems, achieving things. Our kids are all about learning. Our kids are in the classroom, and I think it's very important to maintain this focus, that our kids are engaged in what they're learning. They're not studying because they want to get, the highest score they possibly can on a math test. They're studying because they're actually engaged in what they're learning. They want to learn the math concepts. I love the fact that, I have a 7th grader who's come home, and she's come home with these challenge problems, and the teacher said, put that away. You don't just, we talked about it in class, let's be done with it. We didn't come to an answer, but that's okay. I love the fact that my daughter comes home, and she's all about it because she's engaged by it. So for me, I think it's the fact that we're able to keep our kids focused on learning, and I think that's reflective in everything we do in all of our classrooms.
And so also picking up on the word dynamic. Dynamic means changing, and it means it's not the same every year, and it's not the same subject to subject. And I think that's what Kentfield does really well. It values students who are, as many have said here, involved for the learning process. Not for necessarily getting to the answer immediately, but to think, wonder, find different ways to get there. I still remember one of those challenges that Heidi had, my now 9th grade daughter. I believe it was in Miss Thiel's math class. I'm not supposed to mention her name, sorry. In a math class, 8th grade math class. And it was something about some island and liars, and they told truth some of the time and not the other time. And Heidi was struggling with it. It was driving her crazy, and she asked me to look at it, and I looked at it, and I didn't know what it was all about. And she came up with some explanation that I think was 100% completely wrong. But the process she went through, and which her math teacher acknowledged, because Heidi got up in front of the class and explained it, and I think it was pretty obvious it was wrong. But the rationale she gave showed the right approach to attacking the problem. And I think that's what Kentfield does really well. And dynamic can mean messy, right? It may be different than what we're used to seeing in education. And dynamic also involves trust. And trusting that the people that are in charge of the learning community day to day have earned our trust and are doing a good job with our students. And again, I think we do that really well.
Yeah, no, I'm going to just pick up on some of the past themes as well. I think for myself, when I hear the dynamic learning community, what I think of is the diversity of our student body. What I thought was really exciting is to find out that 1/5 of our kindergarten class does not speak English as a first language. That's really exciting to me. There's definitely changing demographics going on in our community, and it's reflective, I think, of the global economy that we're seeing. So I'm excited to see that our students are going to be exposed to a lot of different types of people, different languages. That is a really rich environment to learn. The second one, in terms of, and this is, I know we're not supposed to mention names, Basic principle, I love her motto that she mentioned in the kindergarten coffee was that we can always do things better. And that, to me, is just encapsulates so much. It's an encouragement to stay nimble. It's teachers are motivated.
In advance of this debate, and it comes from teachers at the Basic and Kent campuses. What do you believe to be the best process for the schools and the board to approach curricular decision making? As a board member, how would you respond to parents who disagree with these curricular decisions? And Karen goes first.
So the board's responsibility is to set the strategic plan for the district, and a big component of that is definitely curriculum. But the board has hired an amazing superintendent who in turn has hired and manages amazing principals, who in turn hired fabulous teachers that are the best in the county, if not in the Bay Area. It is not up to the board to, it's always good to hear a parent's concerns and to process them and take them as a piece of information. It is not up to the board to act on that one complaint or concern regarding curriculum. We must leave the work of the curriculum to our experts, who are the superintendents, principals, and teachers.
I couldn't agree more. So yes, so the board is responsible for adopting a curriculum. So we adopted the Common Core curriculum. But in terms of how that's implemented, that is something that is done by our teachers on our sites. We have some of the best, if not the very best, teachers in Marin County. They do an excellent job. They have for years. They have the best interests of our students in mind all the time, always. I know they do. They work incredibly hard. And so when they make decisions as to how they want to how they would like to teach a particular subject area in the curriculum, they do it, and they do it with the blessing of the principal, with the blessing of the superintendent, with the blessing of the board. We speak with one voice. We do not walk around the community and second guess what's happening, because that's not the way we work. We speak with one voice. We are a united community. If a member of our community, the school community, has made a decision for which they're responsible, then we back them up, and that's what I believe.
Okay, and obviously I agree with all of that, particularly the part about the board members do not implement curriculum. And yes, we adopted the Common Core curriculum, but really the state adopted the Common Core standards. So it starts there. And we may like to think, oh, we can reject the state. Well, we can't. We're a public school. Okay, so the standards have come down from the state, and we work with our instructional leaders, our superintendents, our principals, the teachers, to give them the resources to help implement that in the classroom. Do we ask questions about it? Sure we do, because I'm a lawyer, that's what we do, right? But we do ask questions. We want to know how's it working, what's the rationale for that, but we're not implementing the curriculum. That's left to the professionals. And then part of that implementation procedure and how we can make sure that it's being done correctly and holding people accountable is having a strong review system, right? When teachers are reviewed by the principals, because the principals are on the ground and they're seeing how it's being taught in the classroom every day. And so they get a sense of it. And we trust the principals to conduct that process. And we trust the superintendent to manage the principals in that process. And we get reports, right, when we have the curriculum showcases, and we hear about it on the ground, and we obviously see it through our own students, but we trust. And so we oversee, but we don't implement the curriculum.
I was doing research before running for this role. I was really surprised to find out, and this is in the board's bylaws, that the board has one employee, and that's the superintendent. And the superintendent obviously has the staff, which include principals and assistant principals. So I think that's everything that's been echoed here in terms of on the implementation side. What I do argue that the board could take more of a leadership role on, and this is in the board's bylaws, is setting direction and facilitating the process. So if you do have a concerned parent or a group of parents that are not happy about a curriculum decision, I think the board is very much can help facilitate that process and make it a collaborative one and transparent and in every way. And so that might, in terms of the actual implementation, not part of it, but certainly on the facilitation and setting the direction and being the community leader to help facilitate that is clearly the board's purview.
All right. Okay, a couple of things. I want to start off by saying we have an incredible staff. And having been a teacher, I understand the importance of backing up your staff as a principal, as a board, as a superintendent. We have a really dynamic, successful, pushy group of parents in Kentfield. And if we don't provide any buffer for our staff, it can be a very, very hard job to perform in this community. Having said that, and having acknowledged that, I really believe our staff is second to none. I don't believe in a rubber stamp approach to being a board. The board absolutely has a responsibility in terms of implementing curriculum. I'll read a few things that come from the role of the board in administering curriculum. This is from the guidelines. The board is responsible for adopting a district curriculum which reflects the community's vision for student learning. Set a direction for the district curriculum which flows from the district vision for student learning, adopting a curriculum which, when implemented effectively, will achieve the desired results, and provide community leadership by communicating the adopted curriculum to the community at large. Now, I talked at the beginning of this night about what's been happening in the math program, and that 20% of 8th graders at Kent are enrolled in algebra. Well, every 8th grader in the Ross School District is enrolled in algebra or geometry. And 2/3 of the 8th graders in every other school in Marin is enrolled in algebra. This is a major policy decision. This is the vision of our district, deciding whether our students enter high school a year or two behind other students in terms of math or not. This is a role that the board and the vision that the board has needs to be involved with. So while it absolutely should be the staff's role to implement curriculum, the vision and deciding larger goals are part of the board's responsibility.
Now, I have combined 3 questions here that have to do with the budget, and then maybe we can put the budget to bed for the rest of the time. So, and I won't change the wording because I know that people have great pride in authorship with the questions that they write. What is your experience with the complexities of the KSD budget and education funding in general? What is the board's role with the budget? Why is knowledge of it important? And then one that may seem a little tangential. When will the district need to seek a new parcel tax, and would you support increasing the tax? And we start with Ashley.
Okay, so we'll do the easy ones first. So we'll go backwards. So the parcel tax. So we approved a 10-year parcel tax in Mark, I think it was November of 2007. Right. So I think it was a 10-year parcel tax that went into effect in 2008. So in 2018, we're going to have to seek a new parcel tax. Right now, it is almost 30% of our budget, so we will be seeking another parcel tax. No question about it. In terms of whether that will have to be a bigger amount or how we change it, I have no idea. The good news is we have another 5 years to go, and who knows where our budget will be at that point in time. In terms of my knowledge of the budget, that's an easy one. I have been sitting on the district finance committee for the past 7 years. I've been through 7 budget cycles with the district. I know the budget backwards and forwards. I would think it's fair to say that, with the exception of Barbara Johnson, I understand the budget better than anyone else in this district. So why is that important? Well, for a couple reasons. One is because we have a legal obligation. As a board, we are trustees. One of the main things we are entrusted with as trustees is ensuring that the district is spending its money in the way this community wants it spent. So if you don't understand the budget and you don't understand how it's being spent, it's really hard to be a trustee. So that's incredibly important. I would also argue that in terms of my role in being involved with the budget, the fact that I actually have great relationships with our legislators in Sacramento and have been able to share with them directly how what they're doing in Sacramento impacts what's happening in our district has been incredibly invaluable to this district. I mean, literally, the night before trailer bill legislation was going to the assembly, I literally had someone from the office calling me saying, "Is this the language you want? Is we have it right?" I mean, so having a knowledge of that process is valuable. That's it. I got to stop. Okay. I want to say.
And I will agree with Ashley. She knows the budget better than anyone, aside from Barbara. But all board members have a familiarity with the budget, and we know where the dollars are being spent. We're not all trained in finance, but we are trustees for the district, so it is our responsibility to be familiar with the budget as well. And that is with great help from Barbara and Ashley. So it's always important to have a finance person on the team, I think. As far as the parcel tax, yes, I agree with that. We need to go out for it. We actually will pull Mark Epstein back from where, I mentioned his name again, but he led our last parcel tax, right? Did a tremendous job. And as far as is the parcel tax going to be increased, we don't know. And we seek input from our community before we decide on an amount. We do that for both the bonds and we do it for parcel taxes, because we know it's an obligation to the community. We know that schools are one of the most important assets of the community, but we know it's not an easy decision to ask people to pay more money, particularly when their students may be out of the schools. So we take that job very seriously. What was the other part of that? Is that it? Okay, and it is very important to know where the funds come from, both in the local control funding, but then also what our board has done a really good job of is recognizing the value of the KIC and recognizing the value of the PTA. And without those funding sources, our program would look nothing like it does today. And those relationships really helped us weather the budget storms, because both of those organizations stepped up their commitment to raise funds for the school. And they weren't worried about who was getting credit for the funds. It was going to a program that supported education for all students.
And just on in terms of the parcel tax, just a clarification, I guess it was passed, it was 2008, went into effect 2009, up in 2019. At least that's what the research I have there. Anyways, coming up soon. And is it likewise in agreement? Obviously, it's a major source of funding for this district. I would be very much in favor of going out again for the parcel tax. In terms of the experience with the budget, obviously, I'm a new parent at the school. I have my oldest is in second grade. I don't have direct experience with this current budget, but here's what I do know. I have very relevant skills in business. I've managed personally budgets that are far greater than the current Kentfield School District budget, so I feel very comfortable with finances, and I think that that's something that would be very relevant for this board. So in terms of and I will also just mention one other side note, after talking with past trustees and trustees in other districts, the single biggest area that they kept going back to in terms of what skills you need for a board is really the critical thinking and the ability to ask a lot of questions. So don't take things as a given. Just because the budget's always been this way or the revenue sources have always been this way is really to ask a lot of questions, and that's something I think I would do very well. Okay.
Okay, well, we have a $13 million budget, and the bottom line is you can have the most wonderful curriculum, the greatest staff, the best ideas, but if you don't have the funding to implement, it's not going to work. So our number one priority has to be fiscal responsibility and supporting KIC and the PTA and the organizations that really bring in the dollars to make all the extras possible. Our district is outstanding, and I think it provides the equivalent of a private school education in a public school setting because of the parent commitment and the parent support for the budget and for fundraising. We spend over $10,000 a year per student in our district, and that compares to the California average of just over $8,000. So that's a huge difference. I have an economics background from Berkeley. I run my own business and manage my own finances. And I feel confident that I will be able to, with the support of Barb Johnson, as the teachers support our core curriculum, implement and creatively use the monies that we're going to be receiving, and hopefully the increases in revenue that we will be receiving with the lifting economy to advantage in our district.
Karen.
So, as I mentioned in my opening statement, this is my third consecutive year serving on the KSD Finance Committee. So I've been through a couple of budget cycles myself. And as the PTA president, we manage an over $400,000 budget, working with a lot of different revenues as well as expenditures, and working with the community on asking their opinion on how do we spend it. Do you agree that we should be giving this amount of money to this program or that amount of money to another program? We have our budget presented to our general membership every September, and it is a voted on and approved budget. Parcel tax, I agree with everything. We've got a parcel tax that's in place for another 6 or 7 years, 5 or 6 years. So it would be onerous to go out to our community and ask them to give us even more money when I think everyone got their property tax bills this past week and they're all like, holy moly. So it's not appropriate that we go after our community right now when we've got a couple of bonds still out and the parcel tax still out. With the local control funding formula, as we've talked about earlier too, we've got some flexibility with our monies, and part of the accountability plan that we would have to write in order to support our local, our budget involves a lot of parent input, especially from some special interest groups, if you will, the English language learners, our free and reduced lunch families. So there's going to be a lot of input from those special groups, as well as we will go out and seek input from our community to understand where best they feel we should be spending the money as it relates to our strategic plan.
Cynthia. Basic has faced space issues since 2006-2007, yet the facilities master plan has not been updated since 1999. Can you please speak to this issue of space?
I would love to. Yes, space issues have been an issue. And in 2006, 2007, I was very nearly not elected over the space issue. Actually, it was the election of 2005, because I spoke out at candidates night and said, we're facing a space crunch, and if it comes down to it, we need to take some of those rooms back in the modular building from Marin and Richmond to use them as class space during the day. And lo and behold, that's what we decided to do as a board when we were elected, because we decided our first priority was to students in the district rather than to after-school programs. And the after-school programs are incredibly important, and the nursery school program is incredibly important, but we felt that the absolute obligation was for the K-8 students. And then Grant Grover has been kind of floating around in the back of the district, and we've been working for 2 years trying to secure that space. As I said earlier, we've been forced to file a lawsuit against the Marin County Office of Education to get that space back. When we are successful getting that space, it will give us 5 to 6 classrooms, which will allow us to alleviate some of the space crunch. We are going to, I believe, convene a facilities plan, a long-term facilities use plan that's going to be coming out of the Finance Committee under the auspices of the Finance Committee to look at the increased enrollment and see what we need to do. But as I said earlier, we take a cautious approach in this because we don't want to ask our community to fund a bond to build a building unless we know we're going to need the building for at least 10 to 15 years. And right now we have space that we're trying to get back to address the space issues, which will alleviate issue space.
Yes, this is something I feel very strong about, especially since my kids are at Basic right now. So if you look at the district, we've had, the last 5 years, there's been pretty significant growth. Like I said, 23% in my opening statement. That's over the last 5 years. So this has obviously been an issue that's been increasing over time. And if you look at other districts around us, Mill Valley, Ross, Corte Madera, Larkspur, they all have publicly visible facility master plans on their website, and these are deep, detailed plans with demographic info, long-term planning, and they've been working on these for years. The fact that we don't have one, and it hasn't been updated since 1999, we don't have a current one, I think that needs to be addressed immediately. This is something that we should have been working on a while ago, and I know that there are plans in the works, and I'm very happy to hear that is going to address the space issues. But I think that we need to make this process, again, open, involve the community, and have it be a very detailed plans like the other districts around us have done.
Thank you. I would second what Heather's thoughts on the space issue. It's key to our district, and Corte Madera, Larkspur Corte Madera has, as you probably know, they are in the process of building a new school on land that fortunately they had. We are not in that situation. Ross, near us, just rebuilt their whole school and went through that growing process. So with 700 students at Basage, a school that was built to accommodate more like 300 and had 400 when my 15-year-old was there. This is a very, very serious issue, and I think it's one that the board is going to have to put at the top of the list for future students.
So I'd like to know who closed down Greenbrae School. Talk about not understanding what's in the future and not having vision into your crystal ball. To Cynthia's point, we have to be very conservative in how we fund our facility growth and building. We do need to update our plan. We are working on space at Grant Grover, which will create immediate alleviation of some of our growing pains. And yes, there are buildings going on around us, but their tax base is also different than ours, and they have new, fresh bonds with which to build those facilities. So I don't disagree that we need to update it and keep current, but we also need to be very conservative in our growth, because who knows, it may not, while our population increase has been steady, it could also change next year, and we could remain stagnant for the next several years.
Those numbers are obviously correct in terms of when we last had a facilities master plan and the growth over the last 5 years. And first of all, as to why there's not an updated facilities master plan, I think if you had been part of the school district during the past 5 years, you would know the answer to that question. And it's because you deal with your highest priorities. And during that time, our highest priorities were dealing with how to educate the children we had. We had space. We didn't have tons of extra space. We had a seat for every child. We had a classroom for every child. And so therefore, you deal with the priorities that you have to address. And so for us, it was keeping our curriculum going, keeping focused on the students, as we talked about earlier, and making sure that the money we had was going to educate our students. So that was what had to be our priority over the past 5 years, and we kept very true to that. So we're turning the corner. So in 2 ways. One, we actually are getting to the point where we're actually crossing that threshold. We are no longer going to be able to accommodate all of our students very soon. We're also turning the corner in terms of actually having more funding available. We have the luxury of being able to look at our next needs in the hierarchy. And so obviously space is right up there. For the last 2 years, the board has been actively pursuing the Grant Grover building on the Kent campus. There are currently 4 and probably more, like space for 6 classrooms in there, which would be a huge thing. We believe we own the building before we want to spend any more money. We obviously want to see that through. And we obviously want to start soon on looking at facilities master plan. And I hope, again, with participation of lots of people in our district.
I have 3 questions on the students with special needs. I'm going to read them, 3, and if you feel we need to have a second round on them, then we'll do that. This one says, resources for special needs kids are not keeping up with the growth in student population. Please comment on how our district can fix this problem. Another, I have a special needs child. I do not believe the schools do enough to accommodate his needs. Please discuss what you would do to help those who need more assistance to be successful. And the third one is what new ideas for classroom education, do you want to see implemented, for example, a flipped classroom? Okay.
Flipped classroom, that's a different topic.
That's a different topic, okay. Well, we'll just do these 2 then. And I'll do it again. Resources for special needs kids are not keeping up with the growth in the student population. Please comment on how our district can fix this problem. And I have a special needs child. I do not believe the schools do enough to accommodate his needs. Please discuss what you would do to help those who need more assistance to be successful. And it starts with Heather.
Yes. So 1 out of 10 kids in our school district are in special ed right now. And, you know, I think that's a really fascinating number, because it's obviously significant enough that that we don't have a dedicated resource we share with the Reed School District. And in terms of resources, you know, not kind of keeping up with the student population, I could see that happening because obviously our student population is growing right now, over 700 kids. That doesn't surprise me that that's the perception. And also the perception about, you know, not getting enough assistance. I think those are both very interesting things. I think it is a function of our rapid growth. In terms of what I would do, or, you know, what the board should do, I think as a first step, I think I would facilitate, you know, get the groups together that need to be involved, the stakeholders, you know, the special ed, you know, department, and then the schools, and obviously with the parents that don't feel like their needs are being addressed, and make sure that that happens. I think that's, again, something that from a board perspective could do, setting direction, facilitating the process. It's very much in the board's purview. You know, I don't have specific ideas in terms of what, you know, because I don't have ideas in terms of what the needs that aren't being met, but I think the process is certainly something a board could take leadership on.
Okay. Karen?
I think it's an excellent question, and I think the true measure of a school is how they serve the kids on the ends of the spectrum, not just the middle. We have an excellent special ed department at Kent and at Mesich, and when they say 1 in 10 families are served, those are probably the official numbers, but so many kids in our district at some point or another need support in an area, and we have amazing staff in our resource departments who've been providing support for these students. Is it enough? I think we have to continually strive to improve what we're offering, and I think some methods that would help us to be more effective are early interventions. The earlier we can identify students who need support and provide them with appropriate supports, the less ultimate cost we will need to bear in order to meet those students' needs. Early intervention goes a long way. Plus, it's better for the students and their families. Technology. There's some amazing technology available now that is supportive of accelerated learners and students with special needs in terms of learning. It's much easier to focus learning and curriculum for specific students with specific needs because of the new technology. I would suggest that as well. But ultimately, you know, this is part of what we do as a school, and this is something we will continue to support to the best of our abilities. And it is expensive. It's also underfunded by the federal government. There's a federal mandate that's underfunded by about 40%. And so we'll do as wisely as we can using these strategies, but we're going to have to continue to support it.
So, Sarah has some really great points to make, and I agree with all of them, really. So by law and by desire, we are required to provide resources for our special needs students. And I think we do a reasonably good job. Our special resource teacher that is indeed chaired with the Reed Union School District is phenomenal. She's so talented. She has an amazing staff that she works with. And she is indeed implementing some great programs using technology and other tools to reach out. Early intervention is absolutely important. Again, can we do a better job? Yep, and we need to. It's a matter of having enough resources, which, to Sarah's point, we're not getting enough of it from the federal government. The state also provides us with some, as does the county, but it's probably never enough. But we will continue to look at, I think the board does continue to look at opportunities to enhance the program and the service offerings.
So, echoing what other people have said, no, there's never enough money. You know, if we had enough money to spend on everything we wanted to spend it on, the budget would be a lot bigger than $14 million. So in terms of resources for special needs students, I actually think, so our special ed department is headed by someone we share with Reed, but we have dedicated special ed teachers on both of our campuses who I think do an excellent job. We actually, on both campuses, they run models where they pull a lot of kids out of class, and are focused on helping the students stay in the mainstream, but yet get pulled out for the assistance they need. I'm obviously sorry to hear that anyone who feels that they have a special needs child who doesn't have his needs met. That's unfortunate. I'd say on the flip side, I know a lot of special needs parents who are extremely happy with the services their children are getting. We do the best we can, always, with the teachers who are incredibly committed to helping those students. And that's all we can do. As a board, all we can do is continue to support the special ed department.
And I just going off that last statement, that it's really supporting the special ed department. This is a heavily regulated area. It's probably the most heavily regulated area of education, and a lot of what drives the resources that we provide to special needs are IEPs, so individual education plans, and 504s. And we know that we have one of the best coordinators out there that we share with Reed. Went through a competitive process hiring her to replace her predecessor, and we get updates from her as to cases, needs. She's also part of the curriculum showcase. She comes and does an update for the board annually, as well as meeting with the board in closed session. And special ed is not adequately funded, and never has been. Which doesn't mean that we shouldn't try to do better, but it does mean that putting extra dollars into special education takes those dollars away from the general fund. And that's just the way the funds work. And so that's one of the jobs that a board has to do, is to balance emotional stories from parents about my child, what special needs or not, that their needs are not being met the way a parent wants them to be met. And the board's job is to say, okay, in the scope of the entire district, how can we best allocate those dollars to meet the needs of all students? And we do have a special resource department with the basic intent that we trust are doing their best with the dollars and the technology out there to address the needs of all students.
I found the third part, and I'm going to read it because it adds some detail to the definitions. But if you feel you've already disposed of the question, we can just go around quickly. Diverse learning styles include ESL, ADD, ADHD, OCD, learning disorders, etc. What role should the district take to ensure that all children can get an equal education? And I'll start with you. We'll go around the same way you did.
No, I think we did echo a lot of these. I think all sorts of the same thing in terms of any child who enters the schoolhouse door, the responsibilities that in public education, that we educate those children. And I think we do have, from my experience, that our special ed department is extremely exemplary in the way that they deal with families. And I think that it is, obviously, everything that's been mentioned, if there was more, there should be more spent on special ed. But I do think that's, again, it's the responsibility of our school district to educate all students who come to the
Really, I think that the core strengths of our school district serve so many needs without even calling them special ed or special needs. Having the deep enrichment programs that we have, having a true physical education program, having web leaders, a place where kids who have leadership ability can flourish and develop their strengths, having the science fair, where kids who are science kids can excel and receive recognition and work hard in that area. The wood shop, the drama program, the drama, the journalism, public speaking, wood shop, the chickens outside the wood shop. I mean, truly, I see kids over there who really feel comfortable and really get their needs met by having a different place to go. So I think the breadth of what we offer in our district really speaks to those needs in a way that a government-mandated program can't. And I absolutely support our special ed and resource people, but I think that we've truly done so much in how we've approached education in general to meet all kids' needs. whether they're designated as special ed or not.
Karen?
It's a great calling out of the enrichment programs and the extra programs that are available outside of the school hours as well. I think the best way, and I've heard this said a number of times, and I'm very familiar with specifically the autism spectrum. I have a relative that's very involved in that. The best way to serve the special needs population is to figure out how to mainstream them as much and as best as possible. And our special education department does an amazing job in pulling them out to give them their special time while still allowing them to be in the classrooms, be with their peers, and be in a common learning environment which enables them to be more successful in mainstreaming. So I think we do a really good job there.
Sarah made some very good points about the fact that the students are served more than just in the traditional classroom, but they're served by all aspects of our school community. And some of the disabilities you mentioned in that list it goes beyond the kids who are served by the resource department. It really goes to kids who are in the classroom who don't learn the same way other kids learn. They don't necessarily have an IEP, but they don't learn the same way. And I think our school has done a tremendous job in helping our teachers get professional development so they can learn and they can be responsive to those kids. They know every kid doesn't learn the same way. And they don't try and teach every kid the same way. I think that's something we've done a great job at and we'll continue to work on, obviously, especially as we move into the Common Core. And really, I think one of the things that's really looking at is instead of just covering curricular areas quickly, it looks at moving at focusing deeply, and that's really where, in fact, different learning styles will come out and will be teachers in the classroom will be able to look at, will be skilled at helping students with different learning styles look deeply at the material.
Okay, and following off the Common Core, I think the Common Core actually plays to those strengths. And there's a lot of collaborative work. There's a lot of work where students are leading other students. They're working together as a team. And I'm an English teacher, so you've been waiting for the literary reference. I know you have. But To Kill a Mockingbird, which is one of the 8th grade novels that we do here in Alameda, and we teach it to sophomores, so I just finished it with my sophomores. And one of the things Atticus Finch asks us to do, and asks his children to do, is to learn empathy. And you can't learn empathy until you get into someone's skin for a day and walk around and see what life is like from their perspective. And working with kids in groups, where maybe not everyone's as fast a learner as you are, or a different style learner than you are, teaches you how to relate to other students. And our teachers do a good job at taking kids where they are in the classroom and having them work in groups and learning how to work with one another. And that's one of those valuable skills that you need to go out into the real world, the ability to collaborate and work together as a team and not take credit on how fast you get there, but help your whole team get there. And I really think the Common Core plays to those strengths.
I'm going to read 2 questions, which there's some risk in my combining them because they might not be related, but I suspect they may. What do you think about the Spanish program in our district? How would you like to see it improved, if at all? What are some plans to deal with the Kentfield Greenway demographic changes, i.e. increased population? And I don't know if those belong together, but I'm taking a hazard.
Changing demographics. So Spanish program at Kent and changing demographics.
Maybe not. Okay. So let's see what you're doing. Okay, and you start with Sarah.
It's me, okay. I think that changing demographic is really significant. And I think as a first step, we should make an effort when we hire new staff to hire people who have a background and have training in ESL, teaching English language learners, and frankly, even a really strong early childhood education background will give people some of the same background that will help them to teach students who are coming in with different levels of literacy. In addition to that, I think that The core standards focus on depth versus breadth will allow some of these students to focus more deeply on fewer topics, and I think that will help with the acquisition process in terms of literacy. I think it's a better approach to learning in general, and will especially benefit students who may be may have English as a second language. Finally, I think one thing we need to change in our implementation process with the core standards is the elimination of all ability grouping. I don't believe that's the right approach. The one-size-fits-all, we're all the same approach, I don't think is realistic, and I don't think it's fair to students who have different needs. Allowing for ability grouping in mathematics, especially at the higher levels, will allow for specialized instruction on both ends of the spectrum. Currently, kids who are really struggling in math, and I work with some of them, are now being required to take 2 math classes. If they were instead put in one math class with very focused curriculum and perhaps lower ratios of student to teacher, these students could make the same progress in one class that they're now currently making over 2 periods of the day. And these students are not being allowed to take an enrichment program because they're taking a second math class. So I think it's really vital that we provide individualized curriculum.
So now I'm confused with the question is, are we talking about ability grouping or Spanish program to improve?
So actually, I think a more diverse student body was there.
Yes, that's what I
A
think.
more diverse student body.
Right. I thought maybe the diverse student body talked.
Okay, so the more diverse student body. Diverse student body. So that could mean all sorts of things, right? That could mean English language learners. We certainly have had an increase in that population. I think, if I remember my stats correctly, we had 50 or so English language learners between the 2 schools last year, and this year we had 66 or 67, and the year before that it was in the high 30s. So it's definitely changing with regard to English language learners in terms of that kind of demographic. We have a fantastic English language learner program. The program coordinator for that oversees both programs, and the kids, by the time they get to Kent, are proficient and no longer part of that program because they've achieved English capability at basic, and so they're not even needing it come to Kent. In terms of other demographics, I'm not sure that we're getting smarter or less smart students coming into our district. I think we're serving the same population that we've been serving. And so I'm not sure that it warrants necessarily high groupings or low groupings. I'm actually not in favor of ability grouping. I think it's a bad idea. I think it labels kids. I think it separates them and also delineates the highs from the lows, and that's a static situation that can't be broken. I think we're accommodating our changing demographics as best we can right now.
I'm going to stick with changing demographics. We can talk about Spanish next week. You're talking about both? I am. Okay. So changing demographics. Our student body is changing. We do have a lot more English language learners. It's actually very exciting. I love the fact that our district is not as uniform looking as it was when my kids first entered kindergarten. In terms of how we're handling it as a school district, we're handling it in an incredibly thoughtful way, as we'd expect from our incredibly professional staff. The person who's in charge of that program at Basage is incredibly dynamic and excited about it. Actually, last year the board approved an English language learners strategic plan, basically a vision for how our district is going to help those students. And we've never really had the numbers before to warrant something like that. But it was an incredibly thoughtful plan. It talks about where how those students are different, how this district is going to deal with them and help them achieve English language competence and continue as successful students in our school district. Something else that, because our English language learner population is growing, we've done for the first time is we have an ELAC, which is English Language Advisory Council, which is kind of the same as the Basage or Kent Site Council. It's a special group that gets together with families of English language learners, and they get to talk about the issues that affect them as a population that are different than the issues that are facing the rest of our population. And they've really gotten excited about it. That population actively participates. They come regularly to the meetings, and I think it's been very exciting to understand that population and their needs, and I think it makes our school district a more interesting, dynamic place. Cynthia?
Yes, and actually 2 board members sit on that ELAC committee, and we attend the meetings and are aware and participate in the meetings and hear from those parents about what their concerns are and the issues in the community. And it's important to remember that for Kentfield and Green Bay, we may think that that's all Spanish language. It's not. We have a wide diversity of languages represented in that ELAC committee. And families that have moved here for different reasons. So I think we are doing a good job addressing that, and I think we have very dynamic people in charge of those programs. Some of our change, is the changing demographic limited to language, or was it just changing demographic?
It wasn't. What are some plans to deal with the
Changing demographic. So one of our changing demographics, too, is also in economics. And so we have a much more economically diverse community that I think both school sites are aware of, and the board is aware of too, and how to provide resources to families that might be coming from districts where there hasn't been the focus on education, where maybe they need a little extra support to get to where we want the Kentfield student to be and expect the Kentfield student to be. And I think we're cognizant of that. We don't just think the changing demographic is in language. And as far as our Spanish program, as I said I corrected, I'm pretty proud of our Spanish program. We went through a lot of work to kind of take little bits of Spanish from 3rd grade and 4th grade and 5th grade and 6 weeks at 6th grade and all of that, and turn it into a comprehensive 2-year program that was 1 full year of Spanish, so that almost every single student that leaves Kent is ready for a 2nd year of Spanish and does quite well. And the Spanish program is dynamic. It's moved much more toward oral setting instead of oral delivery, rather than memorizing vocabulary words. It's helping the kids actually learn the language and use the language.
Yes, I'm going to address both as well. So first off, I speak Spanish, and I'm very much in favor of Spanish, especially in the state of California, where 50% of our population speaks Spanish. I'm also very excited that a parent in our district has started a immersion program at Basage, a pilot program this year. It's running before school. Both my daughters are enrolled in it. And right now it's parent funded, but it's every day. So it runs Monday through Friday, year round. So this is an exciting development. I was shocked, like I think a lot of parents, that we don't get any language until 7th grade. So I think this is a really positive development that's going on at Basage. This is what's happening at Basage, but it's also happening in a lot of other schools around Marin in the East Bay. So secondly, in terms of the changing population, my family reflects this changing demographic. I think it's a really, really exciting day for this district to have. There's 22 different languages represented right now in our district. Obviously the dominant is Spanish. I think it's going to prepare our students for the global economy that they're going to have to face, with people speaking different language and not looking the way they do. So this is a really positive development. I think the flip side of this, though, obviously, is in terms of the outreach and how we're including this changing demographic in terms of the people. This is going to take a rethinking in terms of all of our communication, in terms of the way we organize our schools. I was really pleased to see, for example, that the KIC annual letter is in Spanish this year. I think that's a really positive development, and I hope to see future things along those lines. I love Marin. I was born and raised here, and since a young age have always had a deep commitment to this community. I am passionate about our Kentfield schools and want all students not just to excel, but to thrive. Our district has not had a contested board election since 2007. This school board election is about democracy. As a former election observer for the UN, I know elections are part of living in a democracy and integral to the process of encouraging participation and accountability in government. Opening up a dialogue with the community is one of the best parts of a contested election. Our district faces difficult challenges. While all of us candidates may identify similar issues, the approach to address them is what differentiates us. My approach is one based on inclusiveness, openness, and transparency. Current trustees believe that the sign we have a high-functioning board is that no parents or community members attend board meetings and the parking lot is empty. I disagree. We are stronger as a community when we have engaged parents and citizens and when we allow for diverse opinions and perspectives to be heard. I'm running to bring balance and a valuable on-the-ground school parent view to the board. None of the current members of the Board of Trustees or candidates has children at Basage, and only one trustee has a child attending school in our district. My record shows that I have the ability to bring community together to work collaboratively and solve problems. Throughout my academic and professional careers, I've held leadership positions on projects and initiatives that have involved bringing large, diverse groups of people together to work transparently toward a common goal. I know firsthand the importance of good governance and leadership. During my time representing students at Berkeley and Oxford, and throughout my 15-plus years serving on both national and local boards, I have always supported and modeled respectful engagement and open process. I am grateful for the 200 community members and elected officials who publicly support my candidacy, and I respectfully ask for your vote on November 5th. It would be an honor to serve our district. Thank you.
Again, thank you for coming tonight. I hope that I've made it clear my dedication to this district, the passion that I have for education, and the skills that I can bring to the board as both a lawyer and a teacher and a parent who's gone through the district for 11 years. I have the ability to look forward, and I have the ability to look back. And so that things that may seem like fresh issues now, space and facilities, we've gone through that. This board has gone through that. This board is planning for it. This board has experience. This board knows how to handle it. And I would like to continue serving on the board. I don't think a California Distinguished School District suddenly becomes broken because there is an election. I think we need to look at the survey. I think we need to look at parent satisfaction in this district, and it is high. And I do take that as an example. And there aren't a lot of people at the board meetings that they are satisfied with what's happening with the district. People do know about board meetings. They know how to find it. It's been for the last Tuesday nights at 5 o'clock for the last 8 years. People know how to get in touch with the board, and overall people are happy with the district. Democratic election. I love elections. I was a poli-sci major as well as an English major, and I do think elections are incredibly important. You are being given 3 votes. Use all 3 votes, please. There are rumors out in the community that some are saying, oh, just vote for one candidate because that takes away votes from another candidate. If you do that, I think you're subverting the election process because you're given 3 votes. This is an important job. And please exercise your votes to vote for the 3 candidates you think are most qualified to run this school district and be entrusted with your children. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to the PTA and League of Women Voters. I put my heart and soul into serving this school district for the past 4.5 years. I'm very proud of the work of our governance team. We've navigated the biggest financial crisis of our generation and kept our schools strong. We recently approved a new goal for our strategic plan, guiding the use of technology in our district. We've overseen the start of our district's implementation of the new Common Core standards. We've set a high standard of governance and have an excellent reputation as one of the best-run school districts in the county. And we hired a superb new superintendent to lead our schools forward. There's lots more work ahead. One of the first responsibilities of the new board will be to help navigate the district's transition to the new local control funding formula. We will finally be receiving at least a little bit more money from the state, and I believe my financial leadership will be invaluable to the district as our community decides how that money should be spent. We need to ensure the district has adequate classroom space for its ever-expanding student body. Our current board has entered into a lawsuit to reclaim the use of the Grant Grover building on the Kent campus. An incoming board will be responsible for both continuing to manage the lawsuit and overseeing the creation of a new facilities master plan. That plan will be very important for the future of our school district, and the board will want to engage our entire community in that process. We need to continue to ensure that teachers at Basage and Kent have the resources they need for successful implementation of the Common Core standards. Our teachers have embraced the new standards, and the board needs to make sure they have all the professional development opportunities, materials, and technology they need to continue their successful implementation. The district also needs to continue to ensure that our parents get all the information they need about the new standards and what they mean for our kids. And finally, the new board should be committed to continuing the legacy of excellent governance set by the current board. I truly believe I have so much to offer our school district, and I would be honored if you'd let me continue to serve.
So I too am very proud of the leadership that I have demonstrated in this district over the last 3+ years. I am a mom of 6th grade twins, so recent graduates of Basich and now in the throes of Kent. So I too have perspective on behind, current, as well as looking forward. I've seen the transition through my children of what it's like to go from elementary to middle school. And there is a transition, and it's important to understand it. When you're at Basich, it feels like the best place in the whole wide world, and when people say, wait till you get to Kent, you don't want to. You want to stay in your little cocoon at Basich, but once you do get to Kent, it really is that great. But not until you get there can you really appreciate where you come from, where you are. And now we're preparing for high school, even in 6th grade, so we need to understand where we're going. I believe that I really do have the best perspective right now. It's fresh perspective, but it's experienced perspective. I've built a lot of relationships over the last 3 years. I've been in the classrooms. There are a number of teachers who know me firsthand of my time spending it with the children in a teaching situation, leading them in discussion groups. It's been wonderful. I've worked with both principals very closely. They understand me, how I work, how I am consistent, I have integrity, I'm collaborative, I'm a good listener. I do that day in and day out. Through the PTA, I've had so much exposure to the parent community. I'm really excited to be part of this amazing community, which is an army of volunteers. You've heard me say that 1,000 times, I'll say it 1,000 more times. It's truly great. To serve on the board would be an honor. I'd like to continue the good work that this board has done over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'd like to move us continually forward, implementing Common Core standards, supporting our teachers with professional development and the best technology tools that we can, helping get through the implementation of local control funding formula, and serving the best interests of all of our students at every level.
All right, thank you. First of all, I want to thank everybody who's still here. It's really, really amazing to see this many people show up on a Monday night and stay this long because they care about our schools. So I think we're all winners, just the fact that we're here. Now, being the critical thinker that I am, I want to throw out there, because this keeps bugging me, that I'm going to suggest that the people who are disenfranchised may not have taken the parent survey. Just a thought on that one. And now my statement. The last 4 years in our district has been focused on budgeting and making it through an economic downturn that reduced funding for our district. The next 4 years will present a very different set of challenges and opportunities. We are expected to have increasing revenues as a result of a stronger California economy, and we will need to decide how to best use these resources. The new course standards in English and mathematics are a shift of significant magnitude from the past, and our school board will need to provide strategic direction for this change. I have been researching how other school districts are implementing these standards, and as a professional, will use this information to guide the process. Kentfield students should have all options open to them when they graduate from 8th grade, and I will work towards this goal. We will also need to contend with our growing student population in the next 4 years. When my oldest child began at Basich, there were 400 students at the school. This year, we are educating 700 plus students at the same school site. Solutions for accommodating this growth need to be created and implemented. I will make this a priority during my term. Finally, Tomorrow you will be seeing all sorts of yard signs going up in Kentfield and Greenbrae, but you won't be seeing any paper signs out there with my name on them. I have decided to use online technology and renewable materials to promote my campaign. This is an example of making a change when there is a compelling reason to do so. I enjoy working collaboratively, and I look forward to making the Kentfield School District an exceptional learning environment. I feel that my years of experience make me especially qualified for this job at this time. I need your vote to accomplish these goals. Thank you.
So I want to say thank you to the PTA for sponsoring. Thank you to our timekeepers on the Wolf Know. Thank you to the candidates for running and debating. Thank you to the audience for attending. And I wanted to mention that the League has an election website, smartvoter.org, and all of you are going to have your information up on smartvoter.org. Thank you very much.